If you want the single best way to dominate your fantasy draft this year, then this video is for you. Because I'm about to share my full draft strategy for 2025 with you. We're going to go round by round the exact positions you should be targeting and some tips for each round. Now, whether you're in a home league, a high stakes league, a best ball draft, all of this is going to be applicable to you. And if you're not familiar, I'm Sal Vetri. I've been helping people win their fantasy leagues for over 7 years now. And in this video, I plan to do the same for you. So as of right now, I'm in a mock draft. This is just PFF. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. It's just the easiest one that I could pull up right now, and I actually enjoy it. This is PFF. It's a mock draft. I got the 6th pick. This is a half-point PPR. It's a pretty standard in terms of 2 receivers, 2 running backs, of flex, all of that. 16 rounds. I'm the 6th pick on the clock right now. I said there to be no time so we could actually talk through this, but here's the thing. Before we even get into round 1, I have a tip for you before your draft, and if you're in our free newsletter, you know this tip pretty well. Before your draft, you should cue the players you want to draft before it begins. Look, this is one of the simplest edges you could have because we've all been there. The draft lobby lags. Maybe your Wi-Fi is a little bit laggy. Maybe your dog runs into the room, or your kid or your mom's yelling at you, whatever it might be, and you miss your pick. Or maybe you don't even miss your pick, but you're just panicking because it's going 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you kind of just hit the wrong name, or you picked the guy you didn't want to, and now you have regrets. So you want to queue up the players before they go. Now, as of right now, my best available in my rankings is Justin Jefferson. Those rankings in tiers I have up on another screen right now. I could show them a little bit later. So Justin Jefferson slides a couple past picks where I think he should have gone. So I'm going to take Jefferson here. And here's the tip that I want to share with you about round 1. Basically, in round 1, and also this applies for round 2, you want to be drafting for reliability. And that means I just want to be targeting the best available running back or receiver. Now, basically in round 1 or round 2, everybody's going to be reliable, but there are some situations. Ashton Jeanty, a rookie in the first round on a suspect offense. Malik Neighbors on a suspect offense compared to who goes around him. There are some spots where maybe it's less reliable compared to the guys next to them. And I mean, when you're talking about Justin Jefferson, there's not much more reliable guys, really, if any, in the NFL right now. I mean, if you look at it, even last year, many considered this a down year for Justin Jefferson, still a top 3 fantasy wide receiver in points per game. In past years, where he had Kirk Cousins get hurt and he had to play with Nick Mullins and Joshua Dobbs, oh yeah, still a top 2 wide receiver in fantasy points per game, top 5 as well. Like, this is a guy, no matter who his quarterback is, he produces. No matter his competition, he produces. He still has Kevin O'Connell as his coach and improved offensive line. Everything for Jefferson, I feel good about. Definitely taking at pick 6, maybe even a top 3 pick this year. Okay, now I'm on the board in round 2 of this, and just like round 1, I want to draft for reliability here. You can see a bunch of players who went above. You can see Ashton Jeanty falls to the 2nd round. Nico Collins falls pretty far into the mid or close to the middle of the 2nd round here. The whole goal of this is just basically to draft 2 players that could be your hammers, that there's no questions about at all. You feel good about them when they're entering your lineup. If you get 2 receivers, maybe you're getting 300 combined targets. And honestly, in these drafts, I do like to try and get a running back with one of my first 2 picks. They call it Hero RB, somebody that you could rely heavily on. That would have been Christian McCaffrey, but I wasn't going to take McCaffrey over Justin Jefferson. And as I'm looking at it right now, there are some decent running backs. Josh Jacobs is kind of that hammer, workhorse type back. You have a Bucky Irving, who's a player who broke out last year. But Brian Thomas, who to me is arguably a top 10 overall player this year, he's now fallen to me at the 18th pick in the draft, which rarely happens. So I'm going to take Brian Thomas here, and we basically start off our draft right now, if I pull up this team, with 2 guys that I would consider basically first-round picks this year, and Justin Jefferson and Brian Thomas. I think we got both falling past value. This is right now a really strong draft, and when I think about reliable players, we talked about why Justin Jefferson is reliable. Now you get Brian Thomas, who not only was he one of the best wide receivers in fantasy football last year, but now heading into his 2nd year, things actually look better. Because sure, he has added competition in Travis Hunter there, but Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk are gone, so even if Travis Hunter takes up some of their, or all of their usage, Brian Thomas is still there as the alpha. Brian Thomas actually did most of his production down the stretch with a worse quarterback in Mac Jones, and now Trevor Lawrence is healthy. And oh yeah, by the way, Liam Cohen is coming in, which should only be an upgrade for this offense. So Brian Thomas to me is somebody that, sure, he hasn't done it for like 5 years like Justin Jefferson has in the NFL, but I saw enough last year that this guy is legit. Okay, now this takes us to round 3 in the draft, where we start to change my strategy, at least for this year, a little bit. I'm either looking to take an elite quarterback at this point or an upside running back or receiver. So if I pull up the available quarterbacks here, we've already seen that elite tier, at least my top tier in my rankings in the Fantasy Blueprint. You can check them out, link down below if you want to get my full tiers rankings, all draft tools and in-season tools, or join theblueprint.com. My top 3 guys there are Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels. They're all gone. If one of them would have fell to me, and they almost did, Jaden Daniels almost fell to me, I would have potentially considered this. But right now, I'm not interested in getting Jalen Hurts. Maybe we can get him with our 4th pick. So I'm going to go to the 2nd tip that I have. So we said tip 1 was start to look at, consider that tier 1 of elite quarterbacks or the upside running backs or wide receivers. Now, in this point in the draft, I already have a couple of wide receivers. So if I look at a Garrett Wilson, if I look at a Rashee Rice, who I really like, I'm going to pass on them right now just because I have a couple of stud wide receivers, and I want to see what happens at the running back position. There are some guys that I like here. These first 3, three names in Kenneth Walker, Chase Brown, and Amarian Hampton I like. If you've watched this channel, you know I really like Chase Brown. We liked him last year. I like him again. I'm going to go ahead and take Chase Brown here with my third pick. So what did we just secure? We got our upside running back. And in some ways, this is kind of the hero RB strategy. We didn't have to take him in the first or second round, but this is a workhorse who could be a top 5 running back. We saw that the second half of last year in Chase Brown. And honestly, not much has changed for Chase Brown. Zach Moss is still his probably main competition, but maybe even doesn't make the team, which just shows you the state of this backfield. I'm not concerned about a 6th round rookie in Taj Brooks. They bring back Samaje Perine, who's now 30 years old or about to be. I'm not concerned about that. The overall offense basically stays the same. They're going to probably have to still pass a lot with Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. The defense still looks like it's going to be bad. A lot of check down targets and probably red zone usage for Chase Brown this year. And I'm really happy Chase Brown was there. He usually is at that point in the draft, but sometimes some people reach on him because then after that, we might have had to go out there and take maybe Rashee Rice and start with 3 wide receiver builds. The Breece Hall was available. That's where I would start to consider him because I think Amarian Hampton at that point in the draft or Kenneth Walker would have been a little bit of a reach. But now we're through round 3. So we got our reliability in round 1 and 2. It happened to be 2 wide receivers in this draft because they were values. We got our upside running back who's going to probably see a lot of touches if he stays healthy in Chase Brown. This is where the tiers start to drop off a little bit, but here's how you navigate that. In round 4 of the draft, I want to do one of these 3 things. Target an elite mobile quarterback, target George Kittle specifically, or take the best available upside running back / wide receiver. And by the way, now that we're kind of getting into that preseason and definitely training camp part of the year, I also want to call out, don't ignore the preseason games or training camp. We get a lot of information from these games that we just don't get from like April to June or July. So when people are saying, oh, it doesn't matter, don't listen to those people. So let's look at these all in order for this specific draft. I want to first look at the elite quarterbacks. And right now, none of them are available. The best available is Patrick Mahomes or Baker Mayfield. I would not consider them 4th round worthy at all. That elite tier of quarterbacks we mentioned earlier, my tier 1, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels are gone. And so is tier 2 now of Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow. I have a lot of interest in Jalen Hurts when he falls to round 4. He's not there. Okay, so moving on to the second point. I will take George Kittle if he's available, but as you can see right here, the best available is TJ Hawkinson. After that, Laporta. George Kittle went a couple of picks before me, unfortunately. As you can see right here on the draft board for round 4 so far, a lot of guys went right before me that I wanted. I wanted George Kittle. I liked Kenneth Walker in round 4, definitely Amarian Hampton, definitely Breece Hall, and definitely Rashee Rice, all in that order. So we're kind of in a spot in the draft where there's a tier drop off. So what are we looking at now if we go through the things? Well, there's no elite quarterback, there's no George Kittle, and at this point we're probably waiting long on tight end. So once again, I'm looking for an upside running back or wide receiver at either position. It's sort of worst case scenario for right now. Usually there's an elite quarterback or George Kittle or at least like a Rashee Rice or Amarian Hampton left at this point in the drafts. The run out just kind of made it awful for us. So at this point, I don't really love any of these guys that are currently available at running back or wide receiver. A lot of these guys I think I can probably get in a round 5 like a Tet McMillan or a T-Mac, like a Chuba Hubbard. A Cortland Sutton will be on here eventually, right, if we keep scrolling. So if I have to go back up here now and choose between these players for a 4th round guy, I'm going to go out here and we want to go for upside, right? So Garrett Wilson, he does have a lot of upside, of course, in that Justin Fields offense. I'm a little bit worried about mobile quarterback. I'm actually going to click on DJ Moore's name here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take DJ Moore because I think this guy gets a ton of slack. I was going to say crap. Either word works there. So DJ Moore is going to fill into our flex in a 2 wide receiver league. Look, DJ Moore, I get it. His body language wasn't great last year and people saw that on tape. Yeah, mine wouldn't be either in the offense and the offensive coordinator and coach that he had. But if my goal is to try and find upside in the 4th round, and that's what I'm looking for, I got my reliability in round 1 and 2. I got my upside running back in round 3. How is it not DJ Moore? When you're talking about Ben Johnson coming into this offense, who should definitely only help the offense in general, Caleb Williams entering year 2 behind a better offensive line, and right now, I'm not concerned about Luther Burton, who hasn't even taken part. He might not even take part at the beginning of training camp due to an injury. Right now, it's just these 2 guys, right? Rome Odunze, who had a fine year 1, nothing special, was fine, and DJ Moore, who even in a down year last year, he was used kind of weird as like this slot gadgety type guy close to the line of scrimmage, but he was still productive in terms of like overall targets, overall receptions, still earning targets out there. Now he's in a better environment. I think he's going to be more motivated. Round 4, I think there's upside. Round 5 is pretty simple for me. The quarterbacks and tight ends don't look good here, so you're just targeting the best available. Doesn't have to be an upside play, although we would like that, but the best available running back or wide receiver. And another little tip I have for you is just remember that when you're drafting, different is good. Oftentimes, like groupthink can say, oh, this is how the player has to be drafted in this spot, but Chase Brown was a top 10 pick or a 10th round pick last year, so was Brian Thomas, and both of those guys the second half of the year were top 5 players at their positions. So now we're in round 5 and we're looking for the best available wide receiver or running back, and in this point in the draft, in round 5, I mean, somehow Garrett Wilson has fallen to us. I'm just going to assume that this is like a problem with just like the mock draft or a bug in it for this one, because there's no way, unless there's like some sort of news that breaks, which there currently isn't, that Garrett Wilson would ever fall this far. So just for the purposes of like keeping this all fair, I'm going to go out here and assume Garrett Wilson isn't on this draft board, because there's no way. Like, this is usually a 3rd round pick, at worst a 4th round pick. So if Garrett Wilson was gone, my best available player in this range at the wide receiver position starts to become like a Tet McMillan. Cortland Sutton as well at the wide receiver position according to my tiers. Across positions, Trevion Henderson, Aaron Jones. But I'm actually going to go out here, and in the 5th round, I'm going to take Tet McMillan, or T-Mac, right? He doesn't like to be called Tet. So I'm going to go over here and get T-Mac, I almost said it again, right? And we're actually going to start this draft, if we look at my roster here, with 4 wide receivers, which is fine. I'm okay with that. You have to start 2 wide receivers in a flex. I'm okay with taking my 4th wide receiver, right, McMillan, before taking my 2nd running back. And a lot of people don't agree with this, but this is like another tip for you. I'm trying to draft the best available players, especially in those early rounds of the draft. I'm not trying to fill my 2nd running back spot if it means I'm taking a guy who's like 10 picks past value, like I'm just reaching on a guy when there's a clear value in T-Mac, in my opinion there. Now, before we get into these deeper rounds, I was mentioning I've been using my tiers, and if you want to use my top 50 overall player rankings and tiers that show you the best and worst values in those early rounds of your drafts, you can check it out completely free. It's linked down below, or you can just head to fantasyrankingsfree.com. That's fantasyrankingsfree.com. A little highlight of what the tiers look like. As you can see, I've been taking the players off as I go. I kind of got a little bit lazy at certain positions like tight end and quarterback, because we already filled our quarterback spot. But you can see right here, this is going all the way down, and this is if you had the full top 250 rankings. I go all the way down to ranking out 85 running backs, ranking out 97 wide receivers. So no matter how deep your league is, you're going to be completely fine. So those are the top 50 overall, completely free. If you want to take it to the next level and get those full tiers that you just saw, my full top 250 rankings, all my other in-season tools, access to Ask Me Questions one-on-one, well, that's why I made the Fantasy Blueprint. It's what I use in every single one of my leagues, and it's what over 10,000 people used to win their leagues last year, and now are using again this year, and even more people are using it actually. You can check it out right now. It's linked down below at jointheblueprint.com. And just by the way, we're actually limiting the Blueprint this year. There's only a couple of spots left. Last time it looked like a handful of spots. So if you want in, right now is the time before the membership absolutely closes. Okay, now we're in round 6. It starts to become draft the best available player across any position. Just a spoiler alert, there's really not that many, in my opinion, great quarterbacks or tight ends in round 6, so it continues to be the best available running back or wide receiver. Now, I've already looked at the quarterback and tight end spot. There are no guys who kind of just meet my tiers in terms of looking like a value, so we'll look across right now, running back and wide receiver, which is currently what we have filtered up on the screen here. And I'm actually going to look, I really like Chris Olave. I really like him. I think there's a chance he falls again. We do have those 4 wide receivers, and we have our rule, draft the best available player, but there's a running back on the board right now as we're in round 6 that I think is pretty interesting. I do think Aaron Jones is pretty interesting at this point in drafts. I like his backfield running mate in Jordan Mason. I don't think Aaron Jones makes it back to our 7th round pick. So Aaron Jones right now as our RB2 that we get in round 6 of drafts, I feel pretty solid about that. If we pull back up our roster here, we have our upside RB in Chase Brown. We get Aaron Jones, who, yes, he's turning 30 years old this year, but I've said it. If he stays healthy, he's still going to continue a lot of touches, probably put up a 1,200 plus yard year and 6 to 8 or more touchdowns. The point that people might be like, you got Justin Jefferson and Aaron Jones. Yes, we're believing a lot in the Vikings offense. One thing has to go right. The Vikings offense is good. They're currently projected to be a top 10 offense in Vegas, top 10 offensive line, maybe the best coach in the NFL. So I feel good about that. We have DJ Moore, Brian Thomas, and then McMillan on our bench. So as of right now, things are shaping up as we start to fall into those round 7 and later, where you can really start to, in my opinion, gather a ton of running backs, get your quarterback, maybe 2 of them, and then get the tight end later on, especially a value one. Which takes us into round 7, where naturally I want to lean more running backs over wide receivers, because in like round 7 through 9 over the past 15 years, there's only been about 4 or 5 wide receivers who have finished as top 12 guys at their position from this range in the draft, compared to the running back position, where there's been like 2 to 3 times more guys from that position who kind of break out. Because usually in this point of the draft, you're looking at like wide receiver 3s on a team compared to a high-end backup who, if the starter goes down or just isn't playing well, that guy just takes over and is a starter. So I'm going to filter by running back, and I looked at the wide receiver position. There's still some solid receivers out there. I mean, you currently have like Jacoby Myers is in this range of the draft, Deebo Samuel, but I'm actually going to go here. Tony Pollard's on the board, Jalen Warren, Jordan Mason, Isaiah Pacheco. Some people like these guys. I'm going to go with the rookie. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to get Caleb Johnson of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to load up. I'm going to follow our rule in round 7. Again, it's not a hard rule. It depends on your draft specifically. If a wide receiver falls past like value, I would go out there and take that wide receiver. Like if Chris Olave would have fallen to me in this round 7, I would have just taken Chris Olave. But Caleb Johnson ends up falling to us, and I feel pretty good about that. If we look at this Pittsburgh team right here, you're going to have Jalen Warren. He's definitely going to be involved, no doubt about that. But we've never been able for him to really take over ahead of Najee Harris in terms of this workhorse role. We know Arthur Smith likes to run the ball with a bigger back, dating back to Derrick Henry, dating back to Cordell Patterson for time as well with the Atlanta Falcons. And Caleb Johnson comes in and just fits the Steelers profile. He's a guy who runs hard. He has sneaky good speed, long speed in terms of mile per hour runtime during college. This is a guy who put up a ton of yardage last year, especially after contact, over 1,000 yards after contact, averaged nearly 6 yards per carry in the 4th quarter. So like a Derrick Henry in that terms of the profile of getting stronger as the game goes on, wearing on defenders. So Caleb Johnson in round 7 as my RB3 in a 12-team format feels good. Okay, so now in rounds 8 through 9, the theory still holds about running backs over wide receivers receivers if it's a close call, if a value wide receiver doesn't fall. But also at this point, if you didn't take a quarterback earlier, which in this draft we did not, you want to start looking at the quarterback range again. And in this range of the draft, you could usually find like a Justin Fields, a Drake May, a Brock Purdy, somebody who has a lot of upside to finish as like a top 5 quarterback if things go right. They have some mobile upside, or a lot of mobile upside as well. Now in round 8, I looked at the wide receiver position. There's still some decent names available, but in terms of like me having 4 loaded wide receivers at this point in the draft compared to no quarterback, I think we have some good quarterbacks as well. You can see the running back names here. In round 8, I don't really feel like I'm getting a ton of value on these names as opposed to a Brock Purdy and a Justin Fields, where I really like both of these guys. These are my back-to-back in my tiers that I have up on the other page right now. I have Brock Purdy as my quarterback 8 and Justin Fields as my quarterback 9. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to draft Brock Purdy. So Brock Purdy is our quarterback. We secure our quarterback in round 8. This kind of brings up the rule that the later you draft your quarterback 1, the earlier you draft your quarterback 2. So I'm a big fan of going like quarterback 8 right now, or quarterback 1 in round 8, and then I'll go get like another quarterback in probably round 10, and now I have 2 viable QBs. So we do a little roster check here. Brock Purdy, who I feel really good about when healthy down the stretch last year, was putting up top 5 quarterback numbers. Chase Brown and Aaron Jones feel good. My wide receivers being Justin Jefferson and Brian Thomas. We got steals on both of them. Caleb Johnson right now is our flex option, which we can also put a DJ Moore or a T-Mac in there as well. McMillan, the rookie wide receiver, number 1 rookie wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers. So that feels very strong right now. And I should also mention that round 9 is very similar strategy. Try and get one of those quarterbacks. We just got one. Doesn't mean we can't get another if we wanted to right now, or still start to. This is where you can pivot back to wide receiver if a value falls, but usually there's some good handcuff RB still available. So we're in round 9. I still have quarterback and running back highlighted. Like Steph Diggs is available at wide receiver. Brandon Ayuk, who might not be ready week 1. Okay, there's like somewhat of a stack with Brock Purdy, but for those that know what that means, it doesn't really matter as much for season long as opposed to big tournaments like best ball. So I'm looking at this right now. Justin Fields is still there. I'm not against slapping both of my quarterbacks and running with those guys, right? If we scroll down a little bit more to running backs, Tajay Spears in round 9. Okay, that's usually where I'll start to take him. Feels a little early to take a Roschon Johnson. So for me right now, it's between like a Tajay Spears and a Justin Fields. And if I'm looking at the quarterback drop-off, I assume Caleb Williams and Justin Fields will both go after this. So I'm just going to follow our rule. And this might seem weird to you. I'm going to take Justin Fields right here, and I'm going to go get 2 top 10 quarterbacks in my rankings and tiers that I have as values right now, take them back-to-back in rounds 8 and 9. Now I don't have to touch quarterback the rest of the draft, and I feel really good. If Brock Purdy's not doing well, if Brandon Ayuk doesn't start the season and they struggle, well, then I have Justin Fields for those weeks. And if for some reason you're not familiar, Justin Fields is now the Jets starting quarterback. He's reunited with Garrett Wilson. He should probably be used in a way that his rushing mobility, as they signed a 2-year deal for him, that means they probably believe in his skill set. They're going to use his rushing mobility. The last time that was used as like the QB1 in an offense, this dude put up a 1,000-yard season with the Bears on the ground as a rusher, week in and week out, thanks to that mobile upside of like 40 yards on the ground, maybe a touchdown, maybe the upside of a 100 rushing yard game. Literally, because of that, he's week in and week out a top 12 quarterback in fantasy. So now we're approaching round 10, and this is usually the time that I like to tell people, do not let bye weeks impact your fantasy picks. They just don't matter. You're going to have so many weeks on the waiver wire, the ability to trade, to kind of just fill in for your bye week needs. Don't let that determine your draft picks. Like, I don't know if you've noticed, but I haven't said a single thing about the bye weeks because I don't care about them. I know I'm probably going to trade during the season. I'm definitely going to pick up players in the waiver wire. So let's look at the buys right now. Okay, Aaron Jones and Justin Jefferson are on the same team in week 6. I don't care about that at all. Okay, I'll just replace them. I have guys to already replace them in Caleb Johnson and also DJ Moore, right? So if I'm looking at this right now, the buys don't really seem to be that big of a deal. I'm not going to consider them or worry about them the rest of the way. Sure, when 6 teams are on buy, or so yeah, I think that's the biggest buy, the buy-mageddon. When 6 teams are on buy a couple of times this year, everybody in your league is going to be struggling with bye weeks. It's okay if you have 1 or 2 guys on buy. So round 10 is the perfect time to find your quarterback if you have not yet already done that. Like if I didn't take Justin Fields, I would have got my second quarterback, or maybe even my first if I waited long enough right now. But since we already took our quarterback, I'm going to start to look at the tight end position if there's any best available left. And then I'm also going to look at RB and wide receiver again. So I'll first look at tight end. I really like taking David Njoku in round 10. He just recently went. He actually went before my round 9 pick. Otherwise, I would have considered him there. In round 10, it's like Tyler Warren, the rookie, Dallas Goedert, Jake Ferguson, Kyle Pitts. Like none of these guys scream out to me. Like what's the difference between Dallas Goedert and Jake Ferguson, who I would potentially have to take right now, compared to guys who go literally 50 picks later in Hunter Henry and Brenton Strange, who in my opinion, it just comes down to who's the tight end who actually has 6 or 7 touchdowns instead of 3 or 4. Like I'm not reaching on a tight end right now, which means let's look at running back and wide receiver. Since we're in those double-digit rounds, the running back and wide receiver position starts to get pretty darn weak, pretty darn quick, as you can see right here on the screen. I mean, you're getting Braylon Allen in RB2. Roschon Johnson usually goes a little bit later, going a little bit earlier on this mock. Tyler Algier, right? Emeka Egbuka is still on the draft board, which is pretty interesting. thing, right? If we're in these double-digit rounds, it's something like early on, we talked about round 1 and round 2, draft for reliability. The later rounds of your drafts, especially the super late rounds like 13, 14, 15, draft for upside people. So I'm very interested in taking Ibuka here. I think there's a chance he falls to me in round 11 though. So if I scroll a little bit more, I'm going to actually end up taking Jayden Reed right now. He's the best available wide receiver left in my rankings. His teammate Matthew Golden's a little bit higher, but he already went in this draft. So I take Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed as the 5th wide receiver on my team. I don't know who's going to be the wide receiver 1 between Jayden Reed, between Matthew Golden, between Romeo Doubs. Nobody does. Which is why my tip from earlier about paying attention to the training camp reports, to the preseason usage, I think is going to be important for this wide receiver room, especially obviously week 1 will tell us a lot. Dontavian Wicks is going to be involved. Christian Watson eventually will come back from injury, but I'm going to bet on Matthew Golden, the guy they spent the 1st round pick on, but I think it's really close between him and Jayden Reed. We saw Jayden Reed, especially to start last year, be an absolute monster before Jordan Love ended up getting hurt at the end of week 1, re-injuring that injury later on in the year. Then Jayden Reed gets hurt later in the year. So we've seen the flashes with Jayden Reed. They said they're going to keep using him. They even mentioned that they're going to use him as the guy, their own general manager this offseason. So in terms of if I had to pick one, I'll take the upside in the double-digit rounds of Matthew Golden. He was gone a couple of picks earlier, but I still like Jayden Reed, especially as a 10th round value pick and my 5th wide receiver in drafts for sure right now. Okay, so now we're in round 11. These are the best available players. And honestly, once you start to get in these double-digit rounds, assuming you already have 1 or maybe even 2 like we do here, quarterbacks, the only thing you need to do, you start to take some tight ends here. I'll probably wait even more because I think the difference between a round 11 tight end, if David Njoku is gone, and like a round 15 tight end is not that far off. So it's really just taking the best available, and usually I would say an upside wide receiver or running back. I think there's upside for a Roschon Johnson. I'm looking at him right now. I don't think there's much upside for a Marvin Mims, who they were using as a running back to end the season out of the backfield last year. We don't need these quarterbacks. I think there's some upside for Jaden Blue, but I'm not thinking that there's a ton. There's definitely upside for Dre Benson behind an older James Conner if something was to happen to him. Definitely upside behind a Tyler Algier. Ibuka is still in the... Oh, we're just taking Ibuka. I mean, that's it. It's as simple as that. Round 11, we're taking Emeka Ibuka. So here's the thing. We loaded up on another wide receiver. We have multiple rounds now to go get 1 or 2 running backs because how can you pass on Ibuka? I get it if it was like, oh, it's an 8th or a 9th round or maybe even a 10th round pick. He's in round 11 at this point. Chris Godwin reports don't seem that favorable. Like maybe he starts the season week 1, but he's not going to be 100% healthy. I mean, there's a reason why they took Ibuka in the 1st round. Sure, in terms of future years, Mike Evans is 32. Chris Godwin is 30 plus years old and coming off of a serious injury. But in terms of this year specifically, yeah, Ibuka is going to play, whether it's in the slot and 3 wide receiver sets, pushing Chris Godwin to the outside. Ibuka was mostly a slot wide receiver in college where he was great, but also benefited on the outside at Ohio State at times as well. So I'm going to take this guy. He's the perfect idea of a round 11 pick. It's a guy that you already have all your starting spots filled. I even have some of my bench spots filled with good players. Why not take a stab on an upside player? Because if something happens to a 32-year-old Mike Evans or Chris Godwin injury is worse than people expected and he's not looking good or he's looking slow or he's missing time, Ibuka steps into what was one of the best offenses in the NFL last year, most pass-heavy offenses, especially targeting the slot, whether it was K. Dotton out of the slot, Chris Godwin out of the slot, McMillan out of the slot had success as well. Jalen McMillan is a rookie last year. So Ibuka in round 11 looks good. Now let's look at our roster because I'm pretty sure we definitely have to get a tight end eventually. Pretty sure we're going to get some upside RBs next. So we're entering round 12 with the 6th pick overall, and I really think the 6th pick is a great spot to be drafting. I mean, the end of the draft is good. If you have like pick 3 and you snag a Bijan there, I think that's good as well. But I mean, we're getting Brock Purdy, who I feel like could be easily, he's a ranking for me, a top 10 quarterback. Chase Brown and Aaron Jones feels good. Wide receivers are strongest position. Justin Jefferson, Brian Thomas. We get Caleb Johnson a chance to see 300 touches as a rookie. DJ Moore, McMillan, Ibuka, Jayden Reed at wide receiver, easily our strongest position. Justin Fields, also a top 10 QB for me right now. And our running backs, we have 3, which is fine because I think our 2 running backs that we have in Chase Brown, Aaron Jones, and Caleb Johnson, they have a different kind of build. Chase Brown's currently breaking out. Aaron Jones older, but has been reliable and healthy. And if he's not healthy, you get the rookie in Caleb Johnson. Now, in these rounds of the drafts, rounds 12 and on, I still have to get a tight end here. And Dallas Goedert in round 12 is appealing. But again, like you can just get guys rounds later. Hunter Henry and Dallas Goedert, not all that different when Dallas Goedert has to compete with Dallas or Devonta Smith and AJ Brown to run first offense and Saquon. So I'm looking at the running backs here. A lot of good ones, a lot of good RB2s, right? Braylon Allen, Zach Charbonnet, Trey Benson. I mean, Tyler Algier is probably the name that I'm going to pick here in round 12. And honestly, the tip just becomes this. In like rounds 12 through 14, and even if your draft goes as deep as like round 16 and 18, just draft the highest upside running back or wide receiver. Now, of course, there's some caveats. If you haven't taken a quarterback, you better start to take one right now. Maybe a JJ McCarthy if he's available in this range of the draft, a Trevor Lawrence. And tight ends, honestly, at this point in the draft, I would just wait until like round 14 or 15 and just snag a Brenton Strange or a Hunter Henry. But for this point in the draft right now, I'm going to take Tyler Algier. In round 12, this feels pretty good for a running back to get as our 4th RB. We have 3 guys who feel really good about being starters in their offenses. Tyler Algier, if anything was to happen to Bijan Robinson, we know Tyler Algier is like the only other guy they're going to give touches to, and in an offense that should be good this year, should be really good this year. We saw it flashing last year, and if Michael Penix is decent, it's going to be me quality. Like, we've already seen Tyler Algier as a rookie even have a 1,000-yard season, right? And then, of course, they drafted Bijan Robinson, and then you're not going to get 1,000-yard seasons anymore when Bijan, arguably the best running back in the NFL or a top 3 running back in the NFL, is out there. But if something happens to Bijan, Algier is going to step in immediately, right? So I think Algier is a high upside handcuff. And what I mean by high upside handcuff is it means if the starter goes down, that next guy in line, he's going to see basically the full workload. There's a lot of other backfields where if the starter goes down, it's still going to be a split. That's what you want to avoid in your handcuffs. So now we're back with our round 13 pick. You can see some of the positions start to get really thinned out at this point. Like Demario Douglas getting some good OTAs and minicamp hype. Okay, is there really a lot of upside in Demario Douglas when we already have 6 very strong wide receivers? I don't think so. You scroll down a little bit more. I do like Jalen Wright if we're talking about upside running backs. Anything happens to Devon Achane, who's missed some time because he's a smaller back, that looks like a spot where Jalen Wright can come in and take on a full workload, right? We scroll down a little bit more. There's some other wide receivers entering year 2. Xavier Legette, Pat Bryant. Some of these guys are getting hype in training camp. Honestly, in this point in the draft, as I continue to scroll, I'm just going to take Jalen Wright. Like, I can go up and maybe think about a Marshawn Lloyd, but just give me another upside running back entering year 2 in Jalen Wright. Extremely explosive player during his time in college, and on his limited touches last year when he got to fill him, Raheem Mostert or Devon Achane banged up, he looked good on a per touch basis as well. And if you just want a roster update, you already know our starters at this point. We've gone through them a ton. If you haven't, just look at earlier in the video. For some reason, you zoomed to the end here. But if we want to look at our recent running backs on our bench now, Tyler Algier and Jalen Wright, upside handcuffs. If something happens to the starter, they're going to take over probably almost all of the workload, in my opinion. Ollie Gordon's there for Miami, but he's an unproven rookie compared to Jalen Wright, who showed flashes last year. Wide receiver position just looks loaded. Like, these 4 wide receivers being on your bench when your starters are Justin Jefferson and Brian Thomas feels really good. At this point in the draft, we have 2 bench spots available. We also have a tight end spot available. If this is a standard league, many of you, your final 2 bench spots, or just in general, your final 2 roster spots should be your defense and kicker in that order if you have to draft them. Which means for me right now, I have to start looking at the tight end position. And look at this right now. We're already in round 14. We're in round 14 of this draft, and there's still quality tight ends available. I mean, I'm talking about guys who I have ranked as top 20 tight ends in a Brenton Strange. Chig Okonkwo as well is up there as pretty much being a top 15 or so tight end for me. He has the upside. There's nobody else outside of Calvin Ridley in this offense. Hunter Henry led his team last year in targets as well. I don't think that's going to continue with Stephon Diggs and Kyle Williams now there. But if we're talking about it, like Mike Gesicki, they re-signed this offseason. If anything happens to either Chase or T. Higgins, we know Mike Gesicki has top 10 weekly upside. So the way that I'm looking at it, there's so many good tight ends. I feel really good that I didn't spend like a round 10 pick on Dallas Goedert when I'm going to get Chig Okonkwo. Probably right now I'm going to draft Chig Okonkwo, who has the number 1 overall pick, and Cam Ward coming in, and honestly has similar upside, if not way more upside in terms of ceiling, because there's not that many other target competitions besides Calvin Ridley and his offense compared to Dallas Goedert. So if you basically don't get, like, if I pull up the tight end that I just drafted here in Chig Okonkwo of the Tennessee Titans, who's a very efficient on a per route basis tight end, and now he should maybe be in a little bit of a better situation or offensive line improvement so he doesn't have to block anymore. So basically, I'm just going to say this. Like, if you don't get one of those top 3 tight ends, Brock Bowers, who I'm not reaching for, Trey McBride, if you basically don't land George Kittle in round 4 or David Njoku in round 10, like those 2 tight ends specifically, maybe Evan Ingram in round 9, just wait on tight end. So if we look at our final roster here, okay, sure, like round 15 and 16, I would just target an upside running back or wide receiver once again, whoever's left at that point late in the drafts, or a kicker and defense if your league has to draft that. But as you see right here, Brock Purdy and Justin Fields are our quarterbacks. That feels good. Running back is Chase Brown and Aaron Jones in the starting lineup. Justin Jefferson and Brian Thomas were our top 2 picks. Chig Okonkwo or whatever streamer tight end I want to draft, that's fine at this point. I'm okay if I didn't get a top 3 guy. The rest basically look the same to me from like tight end 7 through 20 in my opinion. Caleb Johnson feels really good, especially in round 7, not having to get him in round 6. We said Justin Fields. Bunch of upside running backs here in Tyler Algier and Jalen Wright. I would draft even another one if we look at the board. We could look at it in a second. And then all these wide receivers who I feel really good about. I'm not going to draft the backup tight end. I'll just stream them. If your one complaint was like, why'd you draft 2 quarterbacks? You could just stream your other one. That's fine. But like, I don't feel super confident in Brock Purdy or super confident in Justin Fields. So I'd rather just have both of them. If one of them hits, great. If they both hit, I'll trade one of them and I don't have to worry about playing the waiver wire game if I just only drafted one and he wasn't good. So now I'm back on the board just to show you what round 15 would look like if you could still draft another position, assuming you didn't have a kicker or defense, which most leagues still do. Like, you have Dylan Sampson, you have Demario Douglas. Like, these guys are fine. Are they the highest upside guys? No. I'd probably aim for like a Xavier Legette in year 2 for an offense that could improve, or maybe, even though I already have their wide receiver 1, so maybe not in this build. A Kyle Williams maybe you start to aim for at this point. Round 15, there's not a lot here. Maybe another rookie running back in Jarquez Hunter. You're basically aiming for upside guys, right? Maybe another tight end if you really wanted to, although like I said, I would just stream them. Brenton Strange is still available. All these guys, Jalen McMillan, right? Looking interesting. DJ Giddens could take over fully, although he's competing with also Khalil Herbert. Jerome Ford's a pretty nice pick. That's probably who I would take right here. So Jerome Ford I would draft as our 15th round pick. As of this recording, there's some legal troubles for Quinshon Judkins. We have to see how those play out. But even if Quinshon Judkins does does actually start the season and play, Jerome Ford is a quality running back. He can catch passes. They trust him in pass protection. And in round 15, he might actually be their starter to start the year. And then I would just do the same thing in round 16, an upside running back or wide receiver, assuming that you already had your tight end and your quarterback situation handled like we did in this draft. So that's basically the full strategy that I'm aiming for. Now, I should call out, you have to be able to pivot in your draft. Like in round 4, there wasn't really anything there that I liked, so we had to pivot off of our strategy of elite quarterback or George Kittle and just go to the best available upside wide receiver or running back. Make sure that you can pivot. And make sure you follow a lot of these tips, especially queuing up those 20 players before the draft starts, queuing up players as the draft is going, so you always have your queue loaded so you just never make a faulty or a panic pick. So this is a draft strategy that can help you this year. The top 50 overall rankings will also help you. Totally free, link down below. Make sure to grab those at fantasyrankingsfree.com. Just a reminder. Now, the highlight of this draft, in my opinion, was our wide receiver room, especially those top 2 wide receivers early on. And if you want to see 5 wide receivers this year in fantasy that I would bet my savings on, that's how confident I am in them, you can check this video out right here. I think it's going to help you out a ton. I'll see you in that video, and I'll see you in the next one.